is a bitch in a miniskirt? A man in his feelings with bitterness. What is a woman that really hurt?
Welcome to Section 1904. It's Monday, August 18th. I'm Darren Smith. He's John Gennaro. With you, it has been a mixed result, weekends-wise, results-wise. We're free and live on YouTube, I think. John just told me that right before we started rolling. I wish I had known that. I probably would have showered or not worn a hat, but now I'll have to be a little bit self-conscious about what it is that I look like. Not that anybody's here because you think you got a couple beauty pageant winners, but John, how's the form today?
The form. Honestly, this is one of those podcasts where I am thinking about how the last time I took a shower, because as you know, my water heater basically exploded on me yesterday morning, and it has not yet been replaced. I woke up yesterday needing a shower. Did not have the ability to take a warm one, so I skipped. So at some point today, hopefully, I get to take a hot shower. But yeah, if you could smell this podcast, it would smell pretty awful, just like the San Diego Padres today.
Just like the San Diego Padres. So you need a new water heater? I didn't get an update on this.
Yeah, well, I talked to you before the plumber came out, and the plumber came out and was like, well, you need a new water heater. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. He's like, the good news is you should be covered under warranty because this thing is less than 6 years old. And in fact, my warranty goes for 2 more months. So it's the perfect time to replace a water heater. What I found out, though, is that the expensive part of the water heater is not the water heater itself. It's the installation and apparently the permitting. So this is not going to end up being a cheap thing for me. But fingers crossed, maybe I get a water heater replacement for free out of it. I just care about the shower right now.
Well, you do have a swimming pool. So I will say no judgment here if you just go into the swimming pool for a couple of days. But we also had a warranty on our water heater, and I will tell you the process of trying to get reimbursed or get somebody to come out there and pay attention to you was enough that we just ended up buying a new one. We quit. We gave up. We're like, okay, you've accomplished your goal of frustrating us to the point where we're just going to go buy a whole new water heater. Thank you very much. We cannot possibly wait 6 days without hot water for somebody to come out here and do an evaluation. So it had to be their plumber for whatever reason. I think that was the detail that I remember most. So we just gave in. We just completely capitulated and said, all right, fine. You've won this round, insurance company, or whatever company it was that sold us the water heater or was in charge of the insurance. We're like, okay, well, we're just moving on. So they won that battle. So that's one where we just raised the white flag on that one.
Yeah, we'll see.
Good luck to you.
My plumber was like, let me handle the warranty part for you. I was like, oh, okay. So right before we started recording, he sent me a text. He's like, I'm getting on the phone now. I might be on the phone for an hour making this thing work, but then I should be able to bring you a water heater and install. I was like, okay, great. So I don't have to deal with any of that, but he did warn me that there's a chance that they just turn it all down and I got to go out of pocket for a new water heater anyway.
Right.
So it
becomes a test of will at that point because, like I said, then you're just fighting against like, well, maybe we can get somebody out there to take a look at this on Saturday. You're like, Saturday? Wait, like there's 3 people that live in this house and an animal. Like we can't be living without hot water for this amount of time. So you end up just having to do what you have to do. But I wish you luck. I hope you have a good plumber here who knows how to get through some of the loopholes or whatever it is, some of the roadblocks that you have to fight with. So, all right, my engine is not quite turning over yet, so it's just a little bit past 9 o'clock. We are live on YouTube. I've already seen a comment float in there. John, I did watch your video yesterday or listen to it while I was driving home after broadcasting the SDFC game against San Jose, which we will get to. I could sense your frustration. I also could sense the frustration of people who were in the comments yesterday. It seemed like you were having a tough time dealing with some of the people that were in the comments.
Dodger fans, Darren, having a hard time dealing with the Dodger fans.
I did have a friend of mine who's a subscriber to Section 1904 who did send me a text message on Saturday to say, just so you know, I am not that Dodger fan who is getting under people's skin. I'm just letting you know it's not me. So I did appreciate that from a buddy of mine who is a subscriber, who is a Dodger fan, but I'm sure he was enjoying some of the results from this past weekend. Just scrolling through Twitter today, I have seen blame on Mike Schilt, Manny Machado, Luis Arraez, Yu Darvish, the hitting coach, Fernando Tatis Jr., Robert Suarez, Dylan Cease, the replay guy, AJ Preller, the fans, the media, which tells me, that there is just blanket blame to go around. And, that's That's what happens when you wake up on a Monday and you get swept by the LA Dodgers. This isn't going to be one where I think we sugarcoat. I will say, one of my favorite. I don't listen to a lot of Colin Cowherd, but having been on the show after Collins for years, I was familiar with his radio show. He does one segment that I do like, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. I will hijack that for my own selfish purposes, and I will say where D. Smith was right, where D. Smith was wrong. Where I was right, I told you at some point we would all hate this team again.
You nailed that. I knew you were right when you said it, but I wasn't expecting it to come so quickly.
Where I was wrong is I thought this would be a competitive series,
and
it just was not. And I just did not when you and I were at Bottle Rocket on Friday. I just did not even consider the possibility that the Padres would get swept in this series. If you want to tell me that you returned from the future and you joined us on Friday and said that the Padres lost the series, I go, well, okay. I'm guessing it was probably pretty competitive, but it just didn't feel competitive. And I think that was one of the biggest disappointments. Losing 3 straight is always going to be disappointing, and you have no time to feel sorry for yourself because now you got the lame Giants in town here who would probably like to at least their manager would probably like to make you twist a little bit more. Maybe they're the perfect tonic for getting through this weekend. But there's no way to say it. I mean, it's a massive disappointment. I think it's fair to say, that if you would put this in front of everybody and say on August 18th, you're going to be 2 games back in the NL West, and you're going to have all these players on the roster here that you went out and you traded for, people would have said, where do I sign for that? Where do I sign for 97.2% going to the playoffs according to Fangraphs? Where do I sign up for that? I think any time other than, let's say, Friday, you would have signed up for that, right?
Yeah.
Any other time other than fucking Friday of last week, you would have signed up for that in a heartbeat. But that's not the case today. And that's not to say people shouldn't feel disappointed. You should. They should. Everybody should. Egg on the face, man. It was embarrassing. I'm thinking about myself, not only talking on this podcast, going on Ben Woods and be like, yeah, this is their time. Dodgers are reeling. It's not who you play. It's when you play them. All that sort of bullshit. And none of it happened. So, listen, we all just have to wear it. We all just have to wear it, and everybody's got to get up today, and you got to put you just got to move on. You just got to move on, and you got to play the San Francisco Giants, and you got to be good against the Giants. You can't let the results of this weekend carry over into this week, because then that's when things are really going to start feeling tight, tense, and that's when things start to crater. So, listen, there's no other way to say it. We can talk about it game by game. We talked about it Friday. We talked about it Saturday. You talked about it yesterday. Talked not only about the Sunday game, but about the series as a whole. There's no way that you can sit around and say anything other than it was a massive egg that was laid. Padres just puked all over themselves. But, you have to move on. That's the whole nature of the sport, is you have to move on, and you've got to play against the San Francisco Giants. You cannot let the results of that series fester today and into the next couple of days. You don't have time for that. This isn't the NFL. This isn't soccer. You don't have time for that. And again, it's terrible. I think that they made a lot of these moves at the deadline because they felt like the Dodgers were vulnerable. I think that that's a fair thing to say. Mm-hmm. But you got your ass kicked. You got humiliated. And now you got to figure out a way to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll recap some of the things I said yesterday. Padres have not been a great team on the road this year. They're a much better team at home. They are a great team at home. That gives me some hope. I said this a few times yesterday. The goal for the rest of the season right now, I know it's to make the playoffs and do some damage. The goal right now is to make everyone forget about this series. If you play well enough, no one is going to remember that you went to Dodger Stadium and got swept. Nobody. Until you're playing the Dodgers in the playoffs and they're looking for reasons to make it an even series. But yeah, you kind of nailed it right out of the gate. Almost everything went bad for the Padres. The management was bad. The injury luck was bad. The hitting was bad. The pitching was bad. Everything was bad.
Base running was bad. Coaching was bad. The replay guy was bad.
It was all bad. Manny Machado went 1 for 12 in this 3-game series. Merrill went 2 for 10. Bogarts went 1 for 11. Jake Cronenworth, I know Jake doesn't make the same money as those guys, but he went 0 for 7. He went hitless with 3 strikeouts in what's supposed to be the biggest, most important series of the season to date. Someone sent me a message, I think on Blue Sky this morning, saying it just felt like the Dodgers had the Padres perfectly scouted, and it looked like the Padres had forgotten to scout the Dodgers. And that feels right to me, but that's also like you see the results and your brain creates a story. But it was all bad. And the only thing that they can possibly do now is win enough games in the next few weeks that we're not sitting around going, they had that opportunity and they friggin' blew it. So here's my idea, Darren. The Giants are coming into town for 4 games. They just swept the Giants in San Francisco. They also really, really need this series. They need at least 3 of these games to go their way in this series. So when the Giants enter the visitors' clubhouse today, I hope there is a brand new set of Callaway or TaylorMade golf clubs sitting there waiting for Bob. It's got a note on it. Hey, Bob, thanks for everything. We appreciate you. We got you tee times at Torrey, North and South. You can go play La Costa if you want. We'll get a driver for you. Something to get Bob's mind off of putting a knife in the back of the Padres' playoff hopes and really hurting the confidence of this fan base. Because at this point you gotta pull out all the stops there. And it's getting almost to desperation time, despite the 97%. Because God, if that just didn't bring back every fear and every emotion of what happened in the playoffs last year when they limped out of Dodger Stadium going, I don't know that we're at that level. And then you walked into this series going, we're at that level. And now it doesn't quite feel that way.
Yeah, 2-8. I mean, 2-8 during the regular season is, and it's not a 2-game lead, it's a 3-game lead because of the tiebreaker. So, I do think that all you can do is play the Giants here over the next couple of days, show up. I would imagine what kind of crowd are we going to get tonight at Petco Park? I really have no idea. I'm kind of curious. Is it going to be a crowd that we know what would have happened? And listen, I understand a lot of people now are downplaying this. I'm not going to do that because I did think it was a significant series. I don't think all hope is lost. I will say, had the Padres swept the Dodgers, we would be talking about it being a big series. And that didn't happen. So you can't just wake up and be like, well, it's just another series in August. Because if the results were completely flipped and it was the Padres that did the sweeping and not the Dodgers, we would be sitting here today like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's a 4-game lead. It's unfucking, So like, of course, everybody would be losing their minds here today for good reasons. So, it's really easy just to be like, well, it's just another series. It's August. So what? There are a lot of things that could be true at the same time simultaneously. Team is in a good position. I mean, Phillies won 2 out of 3 over the weekend, but lost Zach Wheeler. I mean, that to me is almost a worse weekend than what happened to the Padres. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I know that sounds like hope, and you can accuse me of that. It's fine. I can deal with it. But, big picture wise, that's a big loss for the Phillies, isn't it? Like, I think it is.
It's
to
huge.
Lose a pitcher like that to a blood clot who's probably not going to pitch again this year. Like, that is like whoa, man, that is potentially changing the trajectory of what is going to happen with the Philadelphia Phillies. So, that's the Phillies. It's not the Padres. I get it. We're here to talk about the Padres and pitching Suarez in the 8th and all that other sort of stuff and why the fielding wasn't good and the base running wasn't good and what was going on with the replay challenges and things like that. We can get into all of it. I mean, I think there's going to be enough content on all of those details today that, you're going to get your fill no matter where it is that you're going to turn. But, to me, it's quite simple. Like, you better show up today and be prepared to play against the San Francisco Giants. Because, if you let that turn into another bad week here, then unfortunately what we've seen in the past from this team is, this thing can go slipping and sliding away. And I do remember 90+% going to the playoffs back in 2021, Jace Tingler's final year. I always will remember that they had a 90+% chance of going to the playoffs in early August, and they ended up completely cratering and collapsing. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't personally think that's going to happen, but I probably didn't think it was going to happen in 2021 either. It's kind of hard to get a read on that sort of stuff, unless you're just a sort of masochist that, wants to sit around and predict doom and gloom all day. But, like that would be my, hey, you woke up in San Diego today, fucking place is amazing. Drive across the Coronado Bridge like half these guys will and go there in front of 40,000+ people and figure it out tonight against the San Francisco Giants, who probably are in San Diego on a little bit of a vacation. So, I mean, what else can you do?
This is the thing, though. Is like
there's no more levers to pull here. There's no more trades to make. There's nobody to call up. Like this is it. Like this is the group that's got to figure this out.
It also felt like the Padres were riding a wave of luck a little bit. Trade deadline happened, everything was going their way again, and the team was getting healthy. And then they walk into the series, and King out, knee drained or whatever. Who knows when he comes back? And then Jackson Merrill twists his ankle, and he says he wants to get back in the lineup, but they pulled him mid-game because his swing was weird. So the luck is turning a little bit, and it's one thing to look at the Phillies and be like, wow, they had an even worse weekend than the Padres. Their fans are completely freaking out. And I think any Padre fan would tell you, like, doesn't matter. You got to learn how to beat the Dodgers. You're not going anywhere until you learn how to beat the Dodgers in the series. Mm-hmm. And it has been, I don't remember the last time the Dodgers and the Padres played a series, regular season or playoffs, where the Padres looked really good. It was probably the end of last season, or maybe, I don't know. But I woke up this morning with a really weird thought. And I know sometimes on radio, there's this question of like, who do people want to hear from today? Like, who's the voice that people really want to hear their opinion, their take, whatever on this? And when it came to Padres Dodgers, and when it came to these moments where it was like, ugh, we're always going to be the little brother. We're not going to be able to beat them. The voice that always reassured me that it was going to be okay was Peter Seidler. And especially with the Dodgers, because he came from there and he knew them intimately. And it was like, I really wish Peter was here today, not just for everything else, but I think Peter's the one who could make me turn around today and be like, you know what? Yeah, no, screw it. We can overcome this. Like they can overcome this. They just got to keep fighting, and Peter's going to do whatever needs to be done but Peter's not here. And I don't think John Seidler's going to be that guy. I don't know if Eric Krupner is going to be that guy, and I don't think AJ Preller is that guy for a number of reasons. So I don't know. I mean, do you want to take a second and point out like the one player who actually showed up for this series and was amazing? Ramon Laureano just continues to be like the best trade deadline acquisition of all time. Apparently now he's like our starting center fielder until Jackson Merrill's healthy. Yeah, I'm glad that he's turning out to be such a great player, but it's very frustrating when you see like the only player having a really good series against the Dodgers be the guy who got here 2 weeks ago. Like that, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better than it being a complete blank, right? And having everybody just no show the whole series. So. Yeah, I mean, maybe, and listen, I think some of this stuff, you do always start to think about, like, is there anything bigger picture going on? I spent more time than I thought thinking about, what you said on Friday, which was Michael King being scratched was a little bit of a bad omen. Now, Michael King was up at Dodger Stadium, and he did speak. I did see some clip. I want to say it was Marty who had it. And he did say something, and it was kind of, I'm paraphrasing here. I probably want to go back and listen to it a little bit more. But he said something about, the knee hurt. So, like, the knee hurt as a result of him doing something different with the shoulder. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. What is he saying here? Like, there's some sort of cascading effect about him trying to favor the shoulder that resulted in the knee ended up taking a toll. And he said it hurt. He didn't say it was injured. He said it hurt, which is kind of, is that like a pain thing or what? So, he just decided he didn't want to play with it while it was hurting. Again, we understand the circumstances. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So he's probably going to want to make sure that he's getting himself right. But I just thought it was an odd sequence that he said. And I started thinking, well, maybe is that an omen inside of the clubhouse? Or guys like, oh man, this is going to be, we got him. Like, is there something there that maybe put this team off in a bad headspace? I don't know. And then, with the manager having some weird moments, right? With the bunting late on Friday night. With the replay, are they looking around going, what's going on with Skipper here? Like, is he good? Is he not good?
Suarez coming in the 8th inning of a tie game? Like,
why are we doing stuff like this? What's going on here? Like, why is it that, I do think it's fair to say, like Dave, we talked about it on Friday, when Dave had the upper hand with O'Hearn and the pinch hitting at the end of the game. You don't have that guy because he's a Hail Mary with your final out of the game. You have that guy because you're looking for an advantage at some point where you think you have this weapon off your bench that you're going to have the upper hand when it comes to a matchup of that hitter versus one of their pitchers. And it turned out Dave Roberts had the upper hand. So that was bad managing from Shield. That just didn't work. And, you do wonder, are guys looking around going, hey, what's going on with our skipper here? Is he okay? Like, what's the deal? Why are things going like this? Internally, these guys, this sport is so mental. It is so mental when guys look around and they start going, wait, what's he doing with Suarez? I mean, I think that's a defensible decision. I know I'm bouncing all over the place from Friday into Saturday. Saturday's game is completely just not competitive at all with Dylan Cease. It was so disappointing. But, all those walks and just giving the game away.
Well, that's if I can pause
I know I'm
you
bouncing
for a
around,
second.
but the Suarez stuff, I think that's a little defensible tactically, right? Because everybody always says, well, your closer doesn't just have to close the game in the ninth. Your closer sometimes, and it wasn't a close situation, but your closer has to be the fireman role. This is modern baseball. It shouldn't be the ninth. It just shouldn't be a safe situation. So you hear that all the time about the evolution of having closers in the game. And then the second you do it, everybody's like, well, what are you doing? So, I think it's probably more defensible, but it's just unusual. It's just not something that we've seen. And maybe guys look around and they're like, wait, what? Like, what's the message that we're getting here from this? Like, we don't do this. So why are we doing this now? Like, maybe there was a little bit of that. But again, I'm just sort of, just guessing a little bit on some of the details of the weekend and some of the themes of the weekend that maybe there's a reason why we saw a team that showed up there that did not resemble the team that left San Francisco at all.
Yeah. And I also think, we talked about how San Francisco just felt like a funeral, like the stadium just felt like a funeral, like the fans had kind of given up really early. And Dodger Stadium wasn't that. I don't know, Dodger Stadium wasn't raucous, but it wasn't that. And the Dodgers jumped out to early leads. They got on Cease early, they got on Darvish early. Wandy Peralta held his own, but they had early leads that they were then able to protect. And this has actually been one of my issues with the Padres since the beginning of the season. They started the season like, they score in the first inning more than any other team. And now it feels like the offense doesn't wake up until the sixth inning of every game. And I don't know why. But to the point about the bad omen, a month ago, it was, I don't know that they have enough pitching for this, but if Darvish can come back and be good, and Cease can figure it out, and Michael King can come back and be Michael King, then they have enough pitching. Then they can go. And Darvish had that start against the Mets, and it was all right, here we go. And Cease had a good start, I think, after the trade deadline. It's all right, it's coming together. And, King pitched, and it was he's got his stuff. He just got to get sharp. And it's here we go. And then King is broken. It's, injured, broken, whatever. Cease looks completely overwhelmed. And Darvish looks like the guy he was in his first start back, where you're just that's not anywhere near an ace level pitcher.
Well, Cease, and I know nobody wants to hear a defensive Cease, but
I'd love
he was against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually been good since the All-Star game.
No, I get it. But it's this series.
I know nobody wants to hear that because the whole point of this thing is against the Dodgers.
No, I know. But this series was supposed to be the culmination of Here Come the Padres. And Here Come the Padres really relied on King, Cease, and Darvish to be better than they were or healthier than they were a month ago. And they all reverted back to what it was a month ago. And hopefully just for a game, hopefully just for a series. But Darvish looked like Darvish from a month ago, and Cease looked like Cease from a month ago, and King was injured, which is what he was a month ago. And I could see how, if you're feeling man, this is, I asked you last week, do you know it's a magical season in the middle of a magical season, or do you have to wait for the results and then go back and watch the season? And I wonder how much the players were feeling man, what a magical season. Everyone's just getting healthier. We're getting better. We're adding talent. As the season goes along, we grow stronger. And then all of a sudden, not true anymore.
Yeah,
hopefully just one series, but not true anymore.
I mean, I read you a text from a friend of mine who works for the team, who's around the team, like he's sort of clubhouse level, and he's like, the vibes are as high as they've been since this person's been there. He's been there, maybe a decade or whatever. It's it's the only other time we were like this was 2022. But you're right, when you hit a brick wall, when you're just cruising and you're in the left lane and life's good and sun shines on your face and the music. And you just totally like blew out over the weekend. Like, like it was just, in a way, it was so bad that it's almost like, if that game was, or, 2-run games and a total blowout, but I don't even think that tells the whole story. It didn't, it felt like, like the Dodgers were just kind of toying with the Padres a little bit. And, I think that's a frustrating thing, but maybe in some way, I don't know, maybe it's just the way my mind is working. It almost becomes a little bit easier to deal with it. But, just because you can say like, well, that was a fucking waste. Let's just toss this one away and move on to the next thing, and just figure out a way to make next weekend matter in terms of at least putting yourself within striking distance of the Dodgers with them coming to town Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just somehow like figure out a way to make that weekend matter. And I think people will slowly, get back to where they were last week with some good results here over the next couple of days. Expectations are just a crazy thing in sports. I was just talking about it with a friend of mine who works for a team in a different sport, and I was talking a little bit about SDFC, and I'm not just trying to wedge this in here. No, I know we want to talk about SDFC, but I was talking about like where we are and how I see some expectations that are just kind of crazy out there. And again, this is a totally different universe. Padres, MLB, MLS, and it should be. But it's like, well, I hope they're going to be not your average San Diego team and figure out a way to win. I'm like, well, they might not. Like as a matter of fact, statistically and according to the odds makers, they're probably not going to win. Mm-hmm. Like, is that going to be a disappointment? Like, it'll stink and it'll sting and it'll hurt. It should. It's the way sports is. But like, I hope we're not getting to the point where it's like, if we don't hit a benchmark for victories for an expansion team, or if we don't win the West, or if we don't go to MLS Cup or win the Supporters Shield, people are going to be like, ah, man, that was a letdown. But like the weight of expectations does become this runaway train sometimes. And again, I think the Padres built these expectations. The message for me at the trade deadline was we feel good about the team, not just as a wild card, but to be a team that's going to be hosting playoff games and make a real run at a division title. Final words haven't been written in that chapter. So, it's real, but sometimes like the weight of expectation, it's a real thing, man. Like it's a crazy conversation to have in sports. And like the teams that have to deal with it on a regular basis, I think it makes you realize like how good you have to be, like, and how tough and mentally strong you have to be to deal with those expectations all the time. When you just get a smidge of them and you realize what it is that happens to you, whether you're a fan, a broadcaster, or somebody that's actually on the team.
Yeah, I use this quote a lot, and it's a misquote. The quote that I use is "Expectation is the thief of joy," and I think the actual quote is "Comparison is the thief of joy." And they're kind of similar in a way, but yeah, it can really hang over you. Very quick on the Suarez thing, and then we can move on to happier soccer conversations. When they acquired Mason Miller, the Padres had a closer, a setup man, a 7th-inning guy, and a 6th-inning guy. And everyone's like, where does Mason Miller fit in? And the Padres were very adamant. Robert Suarez is our closer. Robert Suarez is our closer. Mason Miller will help us in other ways, but Robert Suarez is our closer. You were going to need a closer in that game. It was a tie game. You were going, and like putting Suarez in, I understand they already warmed him up in the 7th inning for whatever reason. I understand you wanted him to face the top of the lineup and et cetera, but it was a tie game. Like, you had to have all the confidence in the world that the Padres were going to score again in the 9th inning for that to make sense to me when Mason Miller is sitting there on the bench, not doing anything. And the only argument that I really hear is someone saying, well, Robert Suarez hadn't pitched in like 4 days. They had to get him work. Great. Hopefully you get him work later when you take the lead and there's a save opportunity there.
Right. Yeah, then why not start him?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
If you're so desperate to get him in the game, pitch him in the first inning.
Yeah. And it just I made this joke after the trade deadline, or maybe the day of the trade deadline, that like Mike Schilt's going to be like overstimulated. He's got too much to do, too many decisions to make. He's going to overmanage himself into a corner every so often. And I think that's actually like, it was a joke, but it's kind of come to pass a little bit. Like, his handling of O'Hearn and Sheets and now the bullpen and the bunting, especially like we pointed out, like Dylan pointed out Freddie Fermin's like really cool bunting skills. Shildt has him bunting every game, and it's not like the bunt to get a hit because the third baseman is standing really far back. It's like, oh, there's a guy on first, just bunt him over. It's like, this is not Martin Maldonado. What are you doing? I think Shildt just hasn't found the right mixture yet with his managing and this group, and I think the Dodgers jumped on it. They took advantage. But yeah, I mean, this was a series, maybe we can close on this, where one team looked a lot mentally stronger than the other.
Yeah. I mean, one team caught a lot of the breaks, and the other team is more than willing to give them those breaks. Hey, you want to, we'll run ourselves out of an inning. We'll drop a couple balls defensively. We won't be ready when it comes time to figure out if we should challenge a call. We aren't ready to start the game, right? Like our pitchers aren't ready to start the game in the first inning. There was, the Padres were, you could sit and say if you want, if you're a Dodger fan, like, oh yeah, our team's just better and took it to them. But Padres were really good guests, man. Like they came bearing a lot of gifts over the weekend.
They did not walk in with the swagger that we thought they were going to walk in with.
I don't know. That's why I was like, man, is something going on with this group? Like what's the deal with them? What happened to the team that left San Francisco? That's like, why you start speculating about things like, oh man, is there something actually going on with King where they're all like, oh man, really? Like now? I don't know. But they better figure it out, like I said, because now all of a sudden, you start going into a little bit of a tailspin. Nobody's going to want to hear that. Well, you're in a great spot for the playoffs. Wouldn't you all have signed up for it? Nobody wants to hear that if this drags into a couple of games at Petco Park against the San Francisco Giants. So, turn that around quick. The thing about having all these options now, and I think you're right. I've always thought, I don't know that this analogy will make a lot of sense, but like, you ever pull into a parking lot, like when there's only one or two spots, you're like going right into that spot. You're going to, the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
You know exactly where you're going to go park. Sometimes when I'm in an empty parking lot, like I'm all over the place. I look like a drunk driver. Like, oh, should I go here? Should I back in? And like,
right, you end up parking crooked for no reason. Like,
for no reason at all.
Because you got stuck between two decisions at the same time, yeah.
Right, and sometimes, I'm sure I'm not the only person. Well, maybe. But like that happens all the time. Like when there's just one or two spots in a crowded parking lot, you're like, oh, okay, well, I know where I'm going to park. I have no real choice here.
Right.
And I think about this with all the choices that like Mikey Vadas has now. With SDFC, I'm like, coming up with the starting 11 is different. Like you're not just like, well, these guys are, they can only play 15 minutes. Like you got guys who want to play, and the same thing I'm sure is true for sure. Like, these guys want to get at bats. They got traded and then like all of a sudden they're starters on their former team. And now maybe you've got a guy going like, hey man, like, is this my role now? Or, maybe you have a guy and he's got an agent and an agent's going like, well, this guy was an all-star playing every day. Like, what's the deal here? Yeah. So, like what do some of these guys know about this team? Like what is their level of loyalty to the Padres? They weren't here in spring training, right? Like, they got traded. They're wrapped up in the machine, the business of baseball. So, it can be a little bit tricky. And I think we've talked about some of the challenges. It's always exciting at the trade deadline to bring all these guys in. But, there are challenges that come with it. Not everybody can make it look as easy as Ramon Laureano, to his credit.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that. And, sometimes, like we said it then and now we're going on 18 days of it. Like it can be a little bit of a process. I remember you and I sitting here and saying, you might have to extend a little bit of grace for these guys just in terms of them trying to figure out a way to get comfortable and fit in. And, maybe that's not just about the players that are coming in. Maybe that's about all of it, trying to figure out how to best use all these pieces. So.
Yeah. And look, the Padres, when they beat the Giants in the previous series, like we talked a lot about the bottom third of the lineup, and that's because the bottom third of the lineup was really good. But the bottom third of the lineup is the bottom third of the lineup for a reason. Mm-hmm. Those guys are not paid as well. They're not expected to do as much as the top third of the lineup. And I wonder if you're just looking for like things that might have freaked them out a little bit. Baseball players are really good at spotting when something's wrong with another baseball player, much better than a normal human being like you or I. And I wonder if that first inning where Tatis tried to steal second and was easily out, And it just looked like he was a little slow, and it followed the conversation we had last week about like, why isn't Tatis stealing bases anymore? All of a sudden now he's not really a threat on the base pass as much. His power is completely gone. He's essentially a slap hitter with, I'm going to say minimal speed compared to what he was before, but like he's not really a threat to steal bases anymore. And Machado looks lost up there. Machado is hitting 200 over the last 2 weeks, and it seems like he's missing sliders and breaking balls by like a foot. Like I actually was watching him this weekend against the Dodgers going, there's something wrong with his eyes? Like he's really off of stuff. And I wonder in that first inning, like watching Tatis get thrown out and then watching Machado kind of go down easily, if the rest of the guys was like, ugh, really? We got to do this without those guys? Like we got to do it with the bottom third of the lineup has to beat the freaking LA Dodgers? I don't know, guys. Like I wonder if that's where the swagger went, like right away, right there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Machado and Tatis because, it's easy to sit around and talk about all these other things, but, these are the things that have been paid for. These are the things that the Padres bought, right? Some of these things are rentals. The Padres bought Fernando Tatis Jr. They bought Manny Machado. They bought Xander Bogaerts. These are their biggest contracts, and these are players that did not show all weekend long.
Yeah.
I thought AC had an interesting note. I suppose this has been out there, but maybe it's just the first time that I've seen it in print and that it stands out today. The Padres have hit 105 home runs, which is 29th in all of Major League Baseball.
I'm not surprised. Where do they get their power from?
And they get the lowest percentage of runs in the game from home runs.
Yeah.
The lowest percentage of their runs scored comes via the home run.
Yeah.
That's obviously a Tatis thing, which is why I sometimes wince when people say, well, he's still having good, and people who criticize him don't know baseball. Well, I think because he's figured out a way to be productive is a credit to him. But it's if you bought a race car, you can't all of a sudden start bragging about, well, this is one of the safest vehicles on the road today. Have you seen the airbags in this car? Like, no, you bought a race car, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you bought. And I give him credit. He's been a great defender, even though he didn't want to move to the outfield. But the organization, and I remember, because I've had these conversations with people who are no longer there, who said, we think he's going to be one of the best outfielders in the game.
Right.
And he went on to win a platinum glove. So he was the best outfielder in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He fought that. He didn't want to go do that. But anyway, not the point. But he's figured out a way to be productive, and I think he does get credit for that. But this isn't exactly, when you bought the Lamborghini, this isn't the reason why you bought it. You didn't buy it because, you're sitting around talking about how good the trunk space is. You're like, no, man, this thing's going to go really fast. And that's it's not exactly it. And that's, I think that's just an interesting stat because, home runs, like goals in soccer are game changers. And when the lowest percent of your runs are coming from homers, like, man, like, I guess I didn't realize that it was that bad. I knew it was down. I didn't know it was that bad.
And when you think about like the Padres, not to be, Chase Headley 15 years ago, but when you think about the Padres, like where's the power supposed to come from? Right field, left field, the corners, right? The power usually comes from the corners. And like Machado's being Machado and Tatis is struggling and Laureano's now bringing power in left. But you have Ryan O'Hearn just sitting there on the bench behind a guy who plays a position that usually asks for some power, and he provides none in Luis Arraez. And it's like when you added Ryan O'Hearn to what you already had in Gavin Sheets, I think part of the math on that was we really need to add some power to this lineup. We really need some home run threats in this lineup. And instead you get 2.5 days of Jose Iglesias taking the spot while these guys sit on the bench. And, Luis Arraez getting 4. If it wasn't for Luis Arraez's concussion, he would be playing 162 games this year. And while they struggle to be a team that hits home runs, and you could look and say like, hey, Tatis needs to be pulling his weight. Machado needs to have some more power. Jackson Merrill, sophomore slump. Where's Xander Bogaerts? I get that. I do. But when you're struggling this bad and you have such an obvious solution to at least part of the problem, I don't understand. Again, I know Schilt is probably dealing with agents and players and happiness. And we talked earlier in the year about it seemed like Arraez was not thrilled to go from the leadoff spot to the number 2 spot. Imagine moving him down more, having him be a part-time player. What would happen then? He's heading into free agency. They want to be a player-friendly organization. All that stuff. But like, part of the reason you got O'Hearn and Laureano was like, we need some home runs. And Laureano's done his part, and O'Hearn has not had the opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good points. Before we move on, let me just ask you. We can spend more time on this over the week here on Section 1904. By the way, for those that are tuning in either on YouTube, I think YouTube is just on our Discord channel, or I don't know exactly how that works.
It's Monday.
It's open for everybody.
It's open for everybody.
So Monday podcasts are always free. They're unlocked. This is a subscription-based service, $5 a month, as low as $5 a month. If you're liking what you're hearing, or if you want to support something truly independent, ad-free, listener-supported, section1904.com. That's our website. You get a daily newsletter Monday through Friday called The Front Row Seat, where John will give you all the stories, all the headlines that you might have missed, all the things that are relevant to your sports day. You get access to the Discord channel, which was hopping over the weekend. You know, people were going at one another. You get access to some exclusive content, whether it's game recaps or any other video that we do, interviews. There's a lot of things to like there. So Mondays are always free. Every once in a while, we'll put a free podcast up. I think Friday was free as well. But, we do this every day, so it doesn't cost much. I think you're probably spending $5 in worse ways every month. I'm just going to guess,
Easily.
not to pass judgment. I know I do.
Yeah.
But for $5, you get to support something truly local, independent, ad-free, and we would love for you to be part of the community. But real quick before we move on, because Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, went on ESPN on Sunday Night Baseball and sort of said in no uncertain terms that realignment is coming to baseball. And his purpose for realignment is travel cost, wear and tear on players, things along those lines. And I've already seen people start to map out what the future divisions are going to look like in Major League Baseball. Let me ask you this, because yet again, we're now talking about another season where the Padres are getting clobbered by the Dodgers. In a future realignment world, would you want to be in the same division as the Dodgers or not?
Yes. 100%.
Okay.
Can't run from them, Darren.
Well, you can. You could be in a division with the shitty Diamondbacks and the Rockies and Vegas A's. You can.
Just to get smoked by the Dodgers every single year? No, iron sharpens
What do you
iron.
mean? What do you mean get smoked?
Well,
I mean, you're winning division titles. You could be hosting playoff games. I mean, that's revenue.
Yeah, I don't care about revenue. I mean, I know the Padres care about revenue.
They rely on revenue at the gate more than anybody.
I know. Well,
by the way, did you hear Grupner on Friday on Ben and Woods say that we are absolutely 100%. This is the best television deal that we can get.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They don't have a television.
Well, that's what he said. So there's no better deal out there. He goes, and we have some things that are being worked on, and I was like, wait, yeah, 2028. But anyway, not the point. So you're saying categorically you want to be in the same division. See, I agree with you. I'm playing a little devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
But I think it's real simple. What you do with the division is you say you have the California division. San Francisco, LA, Anaheim, San Diego.
Agreed.
Full stop. Now, I've seen other maps that are drawn where it's San Diego, Arizona, Vegas, Colorado. Now, that might be better for your product if people are tired of taking their lumps from the Dodgers. But I will listen to conversations. I will listen to arguments for and against being in the same division as the Dodgers in the future. I agree with you. I think I'd rather be in the division as the Dodgers because those are the games, it's baseball regular season, man.
Right.
Like regular season baseball needs a little bit of juice to it, and the Dodgers and Padres give you the juice.
Yeah, what are we going to have, a rivalry with the Diamondbacks? No one's going to care.
Right. I'm just saying, I've seen these maps drawn up a couple different ways that you're going to have 4-team divisions. I'm like,
Also,
I don't know where Seattle would fit into that. You'd have to figure out a way to get Seattle involved somehow.
Seattle's just out there on their own planet. I feel terrible for them. But
I think one of them is like Seattle. Yeah, that was the map, actually. It was Seattle, San Francisco, LA, and Anaheim.
And you know what? If you have both LA teams and the Giants and the Mariners in that division, and the Padres are the only team in California not in that division, the Padres are then playing in the Mountain West. They're playing lower division baseball, and no one's going to care about them, and no one's going to care about their division race, and no one's going to feel threatened by them in the playoffs.
But you stand to win a lot of division titles, whereas you don't have this behemoth standing in your way every year, and where we're sitting here with our tails between our legs, trying to pick up the pieces after another disappointing weekend against the Dodgers. But that's a loser mentality to me. I'm just giving you some food for thought. Like I said, we can dive into this on a deeper level over the next couple of weeks or days or whatever. But it's out there, and Rob Manfred said it's coming. So I believe him that this is coming quickly.
Fine. I mean, what I took away from that is there's probably going to be less of those like road trips where the Padres go to Milwaukee and Chicago and Houston and Miami, and then they come back to San Diego. It's just going to be, closer to home road trips, which I guess fine, whatever. Like there's someone in the comments saying Rob Manfred is demanding creative solutions to problems his previous creative solutions have caused, and that's probably true.
Well, it's also probably true though that this is going to happen.
Yeah, I deal with it when it gets here. Let's talk about soccer. We only got a few minutes left.
All right. 6 straight away wins. SDFC is the best record in MLS. SDFC's 1 win away from tying the expansion record for most wins in a season. 16 wins, 7 losses, 4 draws, 52 points. 1 win from tying, 2 wins from setting the all-time expansion record. 5 points from LAFC's expansion points record, 6 from breaking that. So that's 2 wins away with 7 to play. Was a bit of a slog of a first half there and falling behind on a blooper type play from CJ Dos Santos, which would have been a blooper reel goal to give up, where he kind of just took his eyes off the ball, was looking for an outlet, couldn't find it, and San Jose took advantage of it. Haven't seen a blunder like that in a while.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, goals in the 81st and 84th minute. Marcus Ingvartsen off the bench. Great to see him back and playing and being the number 9 that people thought he was going to be when he signed to come to SDFC. Before it had a manager, before it had a sporting director, before it had a designated player. You knew the name Jeppe Dverskov and you knew the name Marcus Ingvartsen. So these were the second and third players signed in SDFC history. Only one player preceded them, and that was Darren. So off the bench, I thought really an incredibly heroic performance from Franco Negri, who was called into the match in the 35th minute after Aiden Harangi had to leave with what looked like a pretty serious arm injury. Maybe get an update on that tomorrow.
Did Franco break his nose at the end of the game?
At the end of the game, his head was completely split open.
Oh, it was his head. I thought it was his nose. His head was split open. I saw he caught bleeding. An elbow.
They had to bandage him up because they were out of substitutes.
Yeah.
So they had to bandage this guy up and push him back down there on the field. Ended up with the equalizing assist, and then Marcus had the game winning assist to Anders Dreyer. But what a game. 2-1 over San Jose. That San Jose team, I don't want to see that team in the playoffs. They've got some real dangerous pieces. But 6 straight away wins. Number 1 in the Supporters Shield standings, John. Now, it's a little skewed, but on a points per game basis, SDFC is still pacing the rest of Major League Soccer. 52 points. Like Miami and Seattle haven't played. They played 3 fewer games. LAFC's played 3 fewer games. So some of these teams that had to play in the Club World Cup, their schedules are a little bit off.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to look like for them, but you wake up today and SDFC is not only on top of the Western Conference standings, they're on top of Major League Soccer and Supporters Shield standings, and they're a win away from tying an all-time record for expansion clubs. So, I don't know. That was one yesterday where it just was again, outshot 16-5. Last week, outshot 21-5. I don't know that that's a great recipe, but they figured out a way the last couple of weeks in Kansas City, in San Jose, to pick up 6 out of 6 points. What can you say? It's just it's a great story. It really is a great story that they just continue to find ways to win these games, even when they're not playing at their best. And they get performances from guys like Manu Dua and Franco Negri off the bench. It is just a lot of fun to watch. And Marcus Ingvartsen, sight for sore eyes, man. Everybody's wondering what's going on at the number 9 spot here. How could you have let Milan Iloski? This was the guy that was supposed to be that kind of player. Not that he could have scored 10 times in 11 games. Nobody could have done that. But he was the guy that was supposed to be the central figure on that front line of the attack. And it was great to see him, after missing 20 games this year, come back and have his best game as a member of SDFC.
Yeah, a couple things. One, you owe me money. The over-under for total goals was 3.5. You told me to take the over there, Darren. Yeah. Good thing I didn't actually put any money on it. But I looked at before the lineup came out, the injury report came out. I saw Chucky was on it. I think Valakari was on it. There was someone else on it. And I literally thought to myself, oh, it's gotten so bad with Ingvartsen that they're not even bothering to put him on the injury report anymore. And then I looked at the lineup, but I didn't look at the substitutes. I didn't know he was available until that gorgeously handsome man was literally being subbed into the game. And I was like, Marcus is back. And I was excited for Marcus because I remember the first month of this season when he was struggling to get one in the net. And he finally did, but he was struggling to get one in the net. And you told me, like, Chuki's meant to be the main goal scorer on this team, but they're expecting Marcus to score a lot. And then that was in my head when he went down, Iloski came in, and Iloski started scoring goals. Because I'm like, that's the spot. That's the spot. Like Iloski scored goals because the defense is paying so much attention to Chuki and Anders Dreyer. And that opportunity would now exist for Marcus as well. So when he was coming in, I was getting excited. I was thinking he's rusty. He's not 100%. He doesn't have his wind, all that stuff. But I'm excited he's on the field. I'm excited to see what he can do. And then just a beautiful header into the back of the net. I think that's what he does. I think he might be one of the best players on the team as far as trying to head, corners into the back of the net or crosses into the back of the net, as was the case. And the pass to Dreyer was like, that's not a pass you should be able to make if you haven't played in a game in 6 months. Like, he was so aware of everything that was happening, and he made a split decision so quick and put a perfect pass. And like, here's the thing about the game. I part of this game I watched with music playing, so I got no commentary. Part of it I was driving, so I was listening to you and Adrian call it. And at the end of the game, I listened to the TV broadcast, and everyone kind of made the same point. This was a sloppy game by both teams. It was, and especially before Marcus got in there. It was a sloppy game with sloppy passing from both teams. But at the end of it, it's like, wow, SDFC keeps finding a way to win when they're not playing their best football. That's a great trait. That's going to serve them very, very well in the MLS playoffs and up until the MLS playoffs. That's awesome. That's a sign of great coaching, a sign of great leadership, a sign of great players who can just figure it out. But Marcus came in and was just so precise. It was a precise header. It was a precise pass. He wasn't sloppy, and he kind of like dragged the team with him to that victory. I was very happy he got man of the match despite playing like 15 minutes. And I'm very, very excited to see him come back, because when Iloski was not out there, this front line has always felt one player short.
Right.
And the player missing has been Marcus Ingvartsen. And so,
and that was part of the calculus of saying, we're not sure that we're going to pay Milan this kind of money when we think that we're getting Marcus back, because Marcus has proven this at Nordsjælland.
Yeah.
Milan has not. Milan is on a heater. Like, he's on an incredible run here, to his credit. And I understand the argument for keeping Milan Iloski around. Totally understand it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with him in Philadelphia, which, by the way, has dropped points in back-to-back matches. Not that I'm pinning that on Milan Iloski. I'm just pointing that out because it matters for the Supporters Shield. But the whole idea was that Marcus Ingvartsen has been a Golden Boot winner for FC Nordsjælland. And I just wonder if he was ever really healthy. One thing to look at from that header yesterday, and I know nobody's going to do what I do and go back and watch some of these early games, but early on the season, the first 3 games, he got hurt in the 4th game, so he played 3.5. His headers, and I pointed this out a million years ago, which, is March, that his headers had no snap to them whatsoever. Yeah. They were all sort of floated over the bar. Mm-hmm. And, that's a sign of a guy maybe who doesn't have his legs under him. Now, maybe going back and looking at all these plays, this is where you'd need like AI to go back and analyze all the crosses that came in. Maybe the crosses weren't perfect, but his headers, and I remember turning to Adrian and Warren and saying, like, why are all his headers going over the bar? Because he doesn't have his legs under him. So for him to have been hurt, to have missed 20 games, to come back there and to snap that header into the net the way he did, like, that tells you, like, he is back physically, because those headers early on in the season were just floated. So, that's the mark when you see that. Like, your legs aren't fully under you. Again, maybe the service was off, but I don't really remember it that way. So that was a great sight. And then, like you said, to have the confidence, the Travella, on the outside 3 toes there, to curl that one up there to Anders Dreyer, who, found himself in all sorts of space behind the San Jose back line to put that one home. Like, again, and I love the way they all celebrated afterwards. There's this image, I posted it on an Instagram story, of Manu Dua jumping on top of the pile with the biggest smile that you've ever seen in your life. I love that kid. I love his infectious spirit, the way he plays the game. He's good enough that he can recover from mistakes, and he's still making mistakes, but he can recover. Mm-hmm. He finds himself with great instincts. So I love that. And the way they celebrated Franco at the end of it. I have the same reaction that a lot of other people do. Like, well, Franco's not my first or second, or probably not even my third, maybe my fourth choice fullback. But they love that guy around the training ground.
He fights.
And he does fight. And he was phenomenal in this game. And he had to come in. He was not part of that script, but he was ready. And that's such a... that was not the script, obviously, that Aiden Harangi gets hurt.
Right.
And he has to come into the game. And now you have to say, well, he can only play left back, so now we got to move Luke over to the right. So, you're doing all sorts of things, right? And you're just a lot of moving parts. Oni Valakari played 3 different positions in this game yesterday. Again, it wasn't his greatest game, but he started on the left, and then he's up top, and then they move him to the right, and then they're like, okay, this dude, let's just, we'll put somebody else in. He's played every game. He's the only other player besides Dreyer who's played every game this year is Oni Valakari. And he's played 5 different positions. So total unsung hero in the group as well. But, it's just one of those, it just was constantly, Mikey's just moving pieces around. Guys are bleeding. Guys are broken. And you figure out a way in a sloppy game where players are falling down all over the place. What was going on with that field?
I don't know.
Did they water that? What was happening there? Where, player after player is falling down, where you give up a goofy goal and now you figure out a way out of nowhere, seemingly. I was like, where is the attack coming from here? And then out of nowhere, 81st, 84th minute, and you hang on at the end of it and you pick up another 3 points. And man, Portland on Saturday should be another great environment. So, I don't, like I said, the expectation stuff I do worry about. If they don't, do these things, if they don't win the Supporters Shield, I'll be a bit disappointed, right? Because we're there with 7 to go. But for an expansion club, man, how could we have asked for more for this? So I don't know. It was good, man. It was a lot of fun. That was just again, that San Jose team, they sneak into the playoffs, they're going to be a problem for somebody because they know how to score, especially those 3 players off the top. But man, they did their jobs yesterday. SDFC did. Wave did their job there on Saturday night. Looked like it was a lot of fun for people that made the trip. I saw our pal Alex Pena, who's posted really good. There's just a lot of things to like about that weekend from the soccer perspective as well.
Yeah.
So
no, the camera shots of Frontera SD at the San Jose stadium there, PayPal Stadium, was just wow. I saw that and I was like, this wasn't even a team 6 months ago. And they basically filled an entire section, multiple sections in a away stadium.
Looks fun. I know. I was kind of jealous watching everybody on social media partying on Saturday night. I was like, it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so I'm sitting here just watching old videos.
Yeah,
but it was a blast to be a part of it. It really was. So on the precipice of something, I think that should be celebrated. I know that these guys aren't really motivated by some of these benchmarks, but when the benchmark is about winning, I do think it's worth it. 1 win away from tying that record for most wins by an expansion team in MLS history it feels like a really big deal to me. So
it feels like they get to walk into every single game all year long, regular season and playoffs, even now going, no one believes we can do this.
Right.
Let's prove them wrong.
We're still that expansion team, right?
I'll worry about
they'll come back down to earth.
Yeah, I'll worry about next year where the motivation comes from. But right now it's pretty obvious that they're all we're showing you that we can be this team every single week, and you still don't believe us, and we're going to show you again and again. That's why I loved Anders Dreyer taking off his jersey and pointing to his name I'm that guy. It's they just keep having to prove it over and over again, and that's good. That's a good thing for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Section1904.com. That is the website. We appreciate the support, and thank you for watching. Thank you for interacting over the weekend. Whether it was Friday, Saturday, John did his thing on Sunday that I did listen to when I was driving back home. So I tried to give you a little bit extra there for the people who are subscribing. Thank you for all the interactions. We do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you Tuesday.
That is a predator here reverse. All of your presidents, he with thirst. What is a neighborhood record?